Revenge with Karen. The smell of burnt coffee and fluorescent buzz was already giving Monica a headache when the Slack ping came in. Need hotfix on prod ASAP. UI broken on invoice render. It was 7:46 a.m. She hadn't even taken off her coat. By 8:12, it was resolved. Not because someone said thank you, but because no one else knew where the rollback script lived. Not even the junior dev ops guy who once asked if YAML was an acronym. Monica was the duct tape, the whisper in the server logs, the ghost behind every successful launch. She didn't ask questions anymore. She didn't take lunch breaks. She hadn't taken PTO in 18 months, not because she was a martyr, but because if she left, things broke. Quietly, stupidly, reversibly, sure, but only if she came back. By 8:30, she was in a windowless room, watching the new CTO present a click-happy PowerPoint about streamlining post-deployment operations. There was a slide with a stock photo of a woman smiling at a laptop. It wasn't Monica. Monica's laptop looked like it had seen war. It had. His name was Jenkins. She kept her face neutral as he said the word automation like it was a religion, not a tool. Monica had built the automation, duct-taped cron jobs to Slack alerts to PagerDuty webhooks like a symphony of anxiety. But automation needs a conductor. Without her, it was a saxophone on fire. And hey, real quick, since you're clearly someone with great taste for drama and digital warfare, mind hitting subscribe and tossing a like. I mean, 97% of you listening ain't even subscribed. Help the crew out. It fuels our caffeine addiction and keeps stories like this rolling. Anyway, nobody ever asked Monica how it all worked. They just assumed it would. She was the one who stayed late during the Log4j crisis. She was the one who figured out the billing dashboard API throttling issue while her mom was in the ER. She was the one who kept the monthly deployment calendar accurate to the minute. So when the restructuring memo hit, timed perfectly after she finalized the largest infrastructure upgrade the company had seen in a decade, she knew. Oh, she knew. That's why, when her manager pinged her at 6:03 p.m. with, CTO wants you to personally handle tomorrow's rollout. Says you're the only one who won't screw it up, she didn't reply thanks. She replied, send me the build ticket. The upgrade was a Frankenstein, database version bump, API refactor, container orchestration overhaul. A single misstep, and the system would chew its own legs off. Monica handled it with surgeon's precision. She was 3 Red Bulls deep, hair up, fingers flying across the keyboard, while engineers half her age watched with the reverence of children seeing a magician reload Linux on live servers. She didn't care about praise. She cared about clean logs. At 2:37 a.m., it was done. No errors, no warnings, no postmortems. He leaned back, stared at the glowing screen, and whispered, still got it, Raise. But she also knew they'd never see her. They'd use her again, until they didn't. She drove home in silence. Her hands were still trembling from caffeine and tension, but somewhere deep in her gut, a different tremor was building. Not fear, not sadness. Anticipation. Because the ghost behind every successful launch, she wasn't just useful. She was essential. And she was about to prove it. Congratulatory email hit her inbox at 9:02 a.m. Subject line. Outstanding work on Q3 infrastructure upgrade. 2 bullet points. Flawless deployment. Under budget. No thanks, no you saved our asses. Just a PNG of fireworks from a marketing template and a smiley emoji signed off by the CTO himself, Greg Mitchell. A man who used Agile like it was a cologne and walked like his shoes never touched concrete. Monica sipped cold coffee and stared at the email. Then, at 9:07, came the calendar invite. Meeting, organizational alignment, immediate location, HR conference room B. Attendees, Monica Reyes, Greg Mitchell, Dana HR, and a box of tissues probably waiting on the table like a passive-aggressive centerpiece. She knew what was coming, but her brain still couldn't fully wrap around it. Not today. Not after the deployment. Greg didn't even look her in the eye when she walked in. Just gestured to the chair like she was late to her own funeral. Dana gave a soft, oily smile like she was handing over an expired coupon. First off, Greg started, flipping a sleek little leather folder like he'd rehearsed this in the mirror. We want to recognize your contribution. That deployment went exceptionally well. Monica nodded, waiting. And he said, drawing it out like it hurt him, the company moving into a new phase of operational efficiency. We've determined your role is now redundant. Redundant, like a spare tire that didn't fit the new car. I see, she said, calm as a coma. Is there a transition period, documentation walkthrough? Am I expected to train anyone? Greg chuckled. Well, I mean, it's all automated now, right? Jenkins runs the scripts. You said it yourself. Then he tossed in a smirk that made her stomach flip. Basically made yourself replaceable. That's good design. Dana slid a manila envelope across the table. Monica didn't touch it. Inside, her brain was screaming, you arrogant little spreadsheet with legs. You think Jenkins configures itself? You think AWS permissions write bedtime stories to the firewall? Outside, she was motionless. No rage, no tears, just a long, slow blink. I'll need to gather my things, she said. Greg waved his hand like she'd asked to borrow a pencil. Already done. Security's got your badge. You'll be escorted. Escorted. She wasn't a threat. She wasn't a thief. But still, the protocol was escort the expendable. The walk to the exit felt like a scene she wasn't really in, like she was watching herself from above. Past the break room where she once fixed a live rollback in the middle of fire drill. Past the whiteboard where she diagrammed the new CI/CD pipeline, while some interns scribbled smiley faces in the margins. At the front door, a security guy handed her a cardboard box. Inside, her mug, a cactus she hadn't watered since Q1, and a printed sticky note from last winter that said, Restart fixes 90% of things. She stepped out into the parking lot, box in hand, badge useless in her pocket, and stared back at the building. Same building where she'd spent the last 6 years whispering code into chaos. She should have felt rage, or sadness, or humiliation, but mostly she felt unreal, like her reflection in the glass didn't recognize her anymore. The sky was that bland, overcast gray Ohio specialized in, just enough light to make shadows look tired. And Monica, she didn't cry. She just walked to her car, set the box in the passenger seat, whispered one sentence to nobody. Well, Greg, let's see what happens when Jenkins forgets who trained him. The texts started flooding in around noon. WTF, you got laid off. Please tell me this is a mistake. Monica, they can't do that. After what you just pulled off. Her phone buzzed like it owed her something, vibrating on the kitchen counter next to a half-eaten cinnamon Pop-Tart and the pink slip she hadn't opened yet. She didn't respond. Not yet. She sat in silence, staring out the window at the rust-colored maple shedding its leaves like it knew something was ending. She still hadn't taken off her coat. Her group chat, Deploy or Die, named ironically, but today felt literal, was halfway to organizing a mutiny. Jules, UI lead, you should lawyer up. This is bullshit. Kev, Dev Ops, we're already breaking stuff. Jenkins keeps choking on the API refresh, and no one knows where the token vault is. Ryan XSRE now at Stripe. File a wrongful termination claim. Hell, just tweet about it. This is classic age-adjacent targeting. They want to replace senior talent with cheap interns. But Monica just sipped her microwaved coffee and opened her laptop. No rage, no drama, just instinct. She navigated to the deployment license portal. The one she'd set up 6 months ago when the company was too budget-conscious to invest in corporate keys. Greg had literally said, "Can you just use your personal account for now? We'll sort it out post-rollout." She had that in an email, not that she needed it. The screen blinked to life. Her name, her email, primary account holder. Monica Ray's active licenses. One last deployed. 6 hours ago associated projects. Main prod/billing API/UI master/cloud and for ops key expiry. 2026 to 01 to 12, they never transferred it. Not a single attempt. The entire new deployment, the very one Greg had toasted with his budget-friendly Prosecco, was running on her license. Her personal, legally owned, non-transferable license. Tied to her email, to her machine, to her name. She stared at the glowing terminal, heart thudding not from vindication but from certainty. This wasn't revenge. This was negligence, theirs. The Jenkins pipeline authenticated through her key. The AWS cloud cluster. Access granted by a token under her personal IAM profile. Temporary, they said. The billing dashboard everyone depended on to track revenue. Yeah, that too. Memory surfaced, one she'd buried during the all-nighters. Greg, standing beside her cube with his arms crossed like he was delivering a sermon. You're so reliable, Monica. We're lucky you're not one of those I need everything formalized in triplicate types. No, Greg, you were lucky she was loyal, not stupid. And now, the system you threw her out of, it was floating on a raft you never knew she owned. She could crash it. One command, she wouldn't. But she could. Instead, she closed the terminal, walked to her bedroom. Took a long, hot shower that didn't feel earned but definitely felt overdue. She didn't call HR, she didn't threaten legal, she didn't make noise. She opened a new text doc, titled it, "When They Think Jenkins Replaces People," and she began to write. The cursor blinked at her like a dare. Deactivate key force scope equals global. She'd written that command, wrapped it in a safety net of logic blocks to prevent exactly this kind of thing. No rogue ops, no brute force terminations. But now, Monica was the rogue op. The system trusted her too much to stop her. She hovered her finger over the enter key. She could still back out. Let it ride. Let them keep using her key like nothing had happened. Let Greg throw another idiot party with dev ops running scripts they didn't understand, built on a foundation they didn't maintain. But no, this wasn't rage. This was math. She'd read the contract 100 times. Her name was on that license, not the company's. She paid the yearly fee from her own damn credit card because procurement wasn't set up for niche vendors yet. She hit enter. The CLI spat out a response like it was shrugging. Key revoked. Associated sessions terminated. Warning, dependent systems may be impacted. She closed the terminal and stared at the blank screen like it might scream. Nothing happened. Not yet. No alarms, no sparks, just absence. It wasn't a bomb. It was a vacuum, and inside that vacuum, everything they built with her, quietly disassembling itself. She packed her laptop in its sleeve, grabbed the same hoodie she used on all-nighters, and left her apartment with the methodical calm of someone checking the weather before walking into court. By 9:42 a.m., she was parked across the street from the office, same ugly gray building with its keycard gate and half-dead landscaping. The coffee she brought was already cooling, but she didn't care. She wasn't there to drink it. She was there to watch. No screen, no hotspot. Just Monica in the driver's seat, fingers wrapped around a cardboard cup, watching from a distance like the ghost they'd turned her into. Inside, somewhere past those smudged windows, Jenkins would already be gasping. Token Vault wouldn't respond. The deployment pipeline would choke mid-handshake. Billing API wouldn't fetch. Audit logs would timestamp errors no one understood. But Monica didn't need confirmation. She just needed space. Her hands shook, not from nerves, but from the tectonic shift of it all. The clean, absolute no she'd just served to the machine that drained her dry. This wasn't sabotage. This was release. She wasn't erasing their work. It was deleting herself from the places she no longer belonged. Taking her name off the painting they'd signed with someone else's brush. She breathed in the silence of her car and exhaled 5 years of invisible service. No fanfare, no blood, just Monica Reyes, logged out but not powerless. And across the street, the countdown had already begun. At 10:01 a.m., the first Slack message dropped into the hash alerts channel. Deployment queue stuck at 3 pending. Jenkins retrying, no one panicked yet. Jenkins hiccuped sometimes, especially if the UI team left console logs the size of Bibles. They just kick it, curse it, and move on. By 10:07, the second message hit. Error, vault token expired. Reauthentication failed. Then came the PagerDuty alerts. 3 engineers sprinted toward DevOps like caffeine-addled meerkats. Greg, the CTO, was in a meeting titled Post-Deployment PR Opportunities when he got the first call. He dismissed it. He was reviewing LinkedIn posts with phrases like flawless transition and legacy cleanup complete. At 10:13, Slack exploded. Hash SciCD, builds are failing. Who rotated keys? Hash infra vault is dead. Can't fetch tokens. Hash billing, dashboard blank. Revenue metrics not loading. Anyone else seeing $0 for Q3? Hash general, Monica handled that, right? Wait, is Monica still? No, she got let go. Holy SHT, who has her credentials? By 10:18, the dev floor had split into factions like a bad apocalypse movie. DevOps blamed Jenkins configs. Jenkins blamed token permissions. UI was throwing hotfixes into a black hole, none of them reaching staging, let alone prod. A junior engineer named Amber, fresh out of boot camp, quietly said, "Didn't Monica run the vault bindings herself?" No one answered. They were too busy screaming over each other like roosters in a bonfire. At 10:21, Greg slammed into the room. "What the hell is going on?" he barked. His voice cracked, more from panic than authority. Kev from DevOps looked up from 3 failing terminals. "You tell us, man. Jenkins can't push. Vault's offline. And no one knows who last rotated the deployment keys." Greg pinched the bridge of his nose like that would conjure an explanation. "Reboot it. Restore the last config." "We can't," Kev snapped. "The last config is locked. Credentials are invalid." It's like he paused, looking around. It's like we've been cut out. The room went still. Greg's jaw twitched. Someone messed with the access levels. Who had super admin privileges? Silence. Then Amber, quietly, almost apologetically, said, I think Monica did. Greg's eyes darted to her like she'd farted in church. She's gone. Right, Kev said, drawing the word out like a threat. And you never transitioned her roles, never revoked her personal license, never migrated credentials. You just assumed Jenkins would take care of it, like it was magic. Are you saying, Greg growled, that our infrastructure is down because some bitter ex-employee yanked her key? I'm saying, Kev replied, leaning back in his chair, infrastructure is down because the one person who knew how it all worked was walked out with a cardboard box and zero handoff. The fire alarm didn't actually go off, but it might as well have. People were shouting, phones ringing, laptops overheating from retry loops and logging errors. Marketing couldn't access the dashboard to prep their quarterly deck. Finance couldn't verify invoices. Product couldn't even confirm whether their last push had gone live. Spoiler, it hadn't. Greg stormed into the hallway, phone already to his ear. Get me legal, now. Then louder, who revoked our cloud access? But the walls didn't answer, and neither did Jenkins. At 11:04 a.m., the company's biggest client, Corvitech Solutions LLC, responsible for 42% of their quarterly revenue, called in with 2 words that made interns sweat through their polos: transaction delays. By 11:07, was escalated to critical service disruption. By 11:10, legal was on a 3-way call with IT and finance, frantically searching for anything resembling a service-level agreement clause that could buy them time. But there wasn't one, not for this. Monica had written the integration herself, and the backend was currently blindfolded and screaming into the void. At 11:15, HR tried calling Monica. Office line, cell, email, even LinkedIn. No response. Just one unread scene on her last message from Dana. Hope you're settling in okay post-transition. Let us know if you need a letter of recommendation. Monica didn't open it. She was busy watching a pot of water boil, not because she needed tea, but because she liked the metaphor. Pressure, heat, movement, transformation. Her living room was quiet except for the occasional Slack ping from her personal account, muted. Laptop sat open on the coffee table, screen glowing softly with a directory labeled in all caps. Do not delete Monica deployment keys. She clicked it open. Inside, vault tokens, Jenkins binding files, shell scripts with comments like #temporary my ass and #if you're reading this, congrats, you screwed up. She leaned back into the couch and smiled. Not smug, not cruel, just the tired, slightly amused grin of someone who once begged for a proper handoff meeting and got told we'll circle back post Q3. At 11:23 a.m., she opened Google Docs. New document, invoice emergency consulting raise. She filled it out slowly, methodically. No need to rush. She was the only bridge left. Rate, $420/hour minimum block. 8-hour scope. Deployment reactivation, vault restoration, CI/CD triage. Jenkins credential rebinding rush fee, applied. Terms per paid, net zero. She attached her EIN. Added a line at the bottom, please direct all inquiries through legal or board contacts. I do not respond to Slack. By 11:30, she hit save and exported to PDF. She still hadn't answered a single call. Let them sweat. Let them escalate. Her phone buzzed again, private number. She let it ring twice. Then answered. This is Monica, a man's voice. Older, but professional. Miss Reyes, this is Richard Kimball. I'm on the board. We're trying to get clarity on a situation involving system access and key dependencies. She smiled slightly and stood up, stretching her arms above her head like a cat that finally got its nap. I imagine you are. Are you able to assist? That depends, she said, already clicking send on the invoice. I'm no longer an employee. If you'd like my help, you'll need to retain me as a contractor. A pause. Breathing, then, understood. Please send terms. Already did, she said, sipping the tea she hadn't made yet. Clock starts when payment clears. Click. By noon, Greg had sweat through the underarms of his tailored button-up and was on his third. We're looking into it email to Corvitech CIO, who was no longer buying the act. The client's logs showed a steady cascade of failed post requests, misfired token handshakes, and a complete halt in invoice generation. Annual billing isn't scalable, their rep said through clenched teeth. If this isn't fixed by COB, we're pulling the plug. That was when the board stepped in. Greg was yanked from crisis meetings and herded into a call with 3 senior board members, all of whom looked like they'd just swallowed glass. One of them, Richard Kimball, the same Richard who'd called Monica earlier, opened with, "Why does our infrastructure appear to be held together by a single person you just fired?" Greg tried to spin it. "It's Jenkins-based. The deployment is automated. She, Monica, was a legacy technician. We're moving to a more scalable model." Richard didn't blink. "Your scalable model just lost access to the vault." The silence that followed felt like a guillotine hovering midair. "I'm escalating this," Richard said. "You had your shot. I'll take it from here." He left the call and dialed Monica again, this time with the quiet urgency of a man who finally understood how bad things had gotten. She picked up on the second ring. "Monica, it's Richard again. I've reviewed your invoice. Before we move forward, can you just clarify what happened?" Monica didn't sigh. She didn't raise her voice. She simply said, "Your CTO terminated the only person with an active deployment license." Pause. "He told me Jenkins was automated enough to replace me." Pause. "It isn't." "And the vault?" Richard asked, already bracing. "Was authorized through my personal license. Non-transferable, tied to my cloud account. Temporary access, never migrated," I reminded them. No one followed up. He was quiet a moment. Then, "Can you help us?" "Yes," Monica said, "but I'm no longer an employee. You'll need to retain me." "We're prepared to do that," he replied. "Do you have a contract ready?" "Invoice sent. Scope listed. Once payment clears, I'll walk someone through the first steps." Richard hesitated. "We'd prefer if you handled the fix yourself." She smiled, not smug, just patient. "That's extra." Richard laughed just once, dryly. "Of course it is." He hung up and sent an internal memo to legal and finance. "Approve Monica Ray's consulting terms immediately. All efforts to fix this in-house have failed. We will follow her lead." An hour later, Monica's PayPal pinged. $3,360 received. Note: Emergency Retainer Phase 1. She cracked her knuckles and reopened the vault documentation. Meanwhile, inside the office, Greg watched as an internal Slack thread titled Emergency Consultant. Monica Ray's gained 137 reactions, half of them clown emojis aimed squarely at him. Public embarrassment. Oh, it had just begun. The Zoom call launched at 2:03 p.m. sharp. No pleasantries, no small talk. Just Monica's initials glowing in the corner of the waiting room like a silent ultimatum. Richard admitted her to the meeting. There were 6 board members present. One wore a tie with a stain that looked suspiciously like barbecue sauce. Another looked like she'd been crying. All of them stared at Monica like she was both the ghost of Christmas past and the only plumber in town when the basement was flooding with raw sewage. Greg was there too, square-jawed, pale, trying very hard not to blink too much. The faint sheen on his forehead told her everything she needed to know. He'd been sweating bullets since noon. "Miss Ray's," Richard began, calm and corporate, "thank you for joining us." Monica unmuted, face calm, no makeup, hair in a low bun. The background behind her was blurred, but a corner of a cat tree poked through. It didn't matter. She radiated authority. "I understand you need a briefing," she said. "Let's begin." She shared her screen, opened her terminal, brought up the access logs with the crisp, surgical precision of a war medic describing how a patient bled out because some intern tied the tourniquet too tight. "Here," she said, highlighting lines of JSON. "This is where Jenkins lost vault handshake access. Token expired because no one rotated credentials after I left." She scrolled. "This is the API failing to connect with Corvatec's billing system. Right now, running manual invoices with no validation. If they push another batch, your whole financial layer could collapse." Another scroll. "This is where the CI/CD pipeline stalled because the runner environment no longer recognized any active key bindings." Silence. She stopped screen share. Greg cleared his throat. "Okay, but excuse me, let's not frame this like it was intentional sabotage." "Clearly, there was a miscommunication," Greg, Monica said. Slowly and with zero inflection, "I revoked my personal license. The one I paid for. The one I reminded your team to replace. Twice." But no further discussion. Richard cut in, voice like a gavel. "Miss Ray's, what are your terms?" Monica already had them open in a PDF. 3-month contract, non-negotiable. Upfront payment for the first month before any work begins. No handoff until final week. All credentials migrated under proper legal ownership." She paused. "And I want the NDA lifted. I want the right to write about this anonymously on my blog. No names, no company identifiers. Just a case study in what happens when a company tries to automate a human being." The legal rep on the call shifted in her chair, eyes flicking to the board. "That's unorthodox," she said. Greg jumped in. "You can't be serious. This is extortion." Monica looked directly into her webcam, eyes steady as granite. No, this is consulting. You wanted a discount when you thought I was powerless. You fired the human behind your automation. Now you pay full price. Greg opened his mouth, then stopped when Richard raised a single hand. Approved, the board chair said. All of it. Legal sighed and nodded. We'll prepare the paperwork. Greg slammed his laptop shut and dropped off the call without a word. Monica stayed a moment longer. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply said, I'll expect payment confirmation within the hour. I suggest someone begin exporting incident reports. You'll need them. Then she left the meeting. Her phone buzzed 5 minutes later. $12,600 received. Note, month 1 of 3. Monica Ray's Consulting. Terms of surrender accepted. Monica waited until the wire cleared. Then, methodically, like a safecracker in church, she opened her terminal, generated a fresh token, re-authenticated the vault. The system didn't roar back to life. It exhaled, like a dying patient finally given oxygen. API logs started whispering again. Jenkins stopped spinning in place like a drunk toddler. The CI/CD runner pinged back a single line of text. Connected, pipeline restored. She didn't smile. She didn't clap. She just nodded and opened a notepad titled Onboarding for People Who Can Read. Step 1, delete everything Greg touched. Over the next 48 hours, she built a replacement credential schema, refactored vault access so no single human, not even herself, held the golden key again, and added a series of notes throughout the pipeline that began with, "This should never happen again. If it does, you deserve it." By the end of day 3, everything was humming. Quiet, obedient. Just the way she liked it. That's when the internal memo leaked, first in Slack, quietly forwarded to her inbox by a friend still on the inside. Subject: New access protocol from board admin to all staff going forward. All cloud infrastructure deployment access will be managed and monitored by external consultant Monica Ray's. Please contact IT for credential requests. Do not attempt to modify pipeline architecture without written approval. Thank you. The signature at the bottom had a new name. Greg's was gone. 1 week later, the company announced Greg's resignation, citing personal health considerations. The comment thread beneath the announcement was a minefield of polite reactions and popcorn emojis. Interns whispered about the Jenkins incident like it was a haunted legend. Monica didn't reply, didn't repost. She just logged into LinkedIn, clicked Edit Profile, title Cloud Deployment Specialist Consultant Location, Remote Status, Available Rate, Premium Bio, I bring systems back from the dead. Don't make me prove it, again. Then and only then did she allow herself a glass of decent wine, not celebration. Closure. She'd been told she was no longer needed, that the machine could hum without her, that automation could replace care. But the truth? The truth was on every server she'd just resuscitated, every pipeline she'd repaired, every log now clean and obedient again. They said I was no longer needed. Turns out I was the lock and the key. I think what hit hardest here was how calm Monica stayed. She didn't yell, didn't beg. She let their own negligence do the damage. It's a reminder that sometimes the most powerful move isn't retaliation. It's walking away with your value intact and making them realize it too late. Big thanks, you legends of the old office days. Subscribe to keep the switch-flicking chaos alive. Your ex-boss is shaking in their loafers.